Right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. Just going to allow one more minute and then we will kick off. All right, I think we're ready to get started. Good morning, everyone. A warm welcome to you all and thank you for joining us today. I'm Clara Wicht. I currently head up Telviva's product and marketing department, and I will be your webinar host today, discussing the topic on intelligent customer experience. So some of the key customer experience trends that organizations find is that organizations will continue to accelerate digital transformation across their customer journey. They will continue to close the gap on personalization, and automation will supercharge the employee and therefore customer experience. In a study conducted about a year ago, McKinsey found that 71% of consumers expect personalization, where the other 76% get frustrated when they do not receive it. And I think this highlights the fact that more and more customers are demanding personalized engagements and service delivery, and competing on price and product alone no longer is good enough. So I think in today's webinar, discussing the topic of intelligent customer experience, we'll be dissecting what it means, what it looks like in the different environments. How do you create a great customer experience? What are the basic building blocks in achieving it? And how do you make the customer experience more intelligent? And then also looking at some pitfalls in adopting a more automated customer interaction. Right, so in this panel discussion, Arthur Goldstuck, Kobus van Westhuizen, and Rob Lith will discuss how organizations can accelerate quality customer decision-making and how to enhance customer experiences, while also exploring the role that human analysis, automation, and artificial intelligence has to play in all of this. So just before we get started, some house rules. This webinar is scheduled for an hour. So 40 minutes of that will consist of structured speaking. And then we'll have a panel discussion with our three speakers. Thereafter, we'll be taking some questions from the audience. So please feel free to post any of your questions in the Q&A section of the webinar. You'll find that in your little panel at the bottom. Right, so on that note, I would like to hand over to our key speaker of the day, Arthur Goldstuck. He is a renowned technology analyst, author, and keynote speaker who has been described as South Africa's most influential commentator on the role of technology in modern life. For over 25 years, he has been a leading authority on the impact of technology on business, society, and personal lives. Arthur, we're very fortunate to have you here with us today, and we're excited to hear some of your insights. On that note, I would like to hand over to you.
Thanks so much, Clara. I love today's topic because my experience with Telviva over the years has been a great experience as well. And of course, Telviva executives and leaders go back to the start of the internet in South Africa. And we've in many ways shared the journey together. And it's great to be sharing one of the next stages of this journey with you and the audience. Also, great to see old friends and contacts in the participant list, and hopefully I'll make new friends today as well. Hopefully not too many enemies from what I'm going to say about customer experience. It's all in the interests of you making friends with your customers. And on that note, I'm going to share my presentation with you. And this is one of my favorite themes that I've adapted to quite a few contexts, and that is the question, would you let your drone walk your dog? Because that is actually a proxy question for whether you would use robots, artificial intelligence, automation, and the like to manage your customer's experience. And the question is the good thing, is the bad thing? I'm going to give you the answer to that. And some of the answers might surprise you. So firstly, just to give you the context of what is changing everything today and has been changing it for the past 5 years, the artificial intelligence revolution that everyone is now talking about and writing about is nothing new. What's new is that it's suddenly gone mainstream, but it's been years in the making. Then cloud-based business operation is also a massive driver of change. Instant connectivity via 5G and what comes next is going to be a big issue and a big driver of change in this decade. And then virtual and augmented reality, which has been a bit of a disappointment on a consumer level, is already making big changes in areas like training and the like. And blockchain in the background is also creating a big shift beyond just cryptocurrency. So having said that, the key message that I want to deliver is that it's not about the technology, but about the use case. So the use of technology for its own sake, no. But let me share one of the great use cases that people didn't expect from the drone environment. A gentleman by the name of Bakis Dimitrios, living in Cyprus, during the pandemic and the lockdown, when no one was allowed to leave their homes anywhere in the world, he found a great use case for what had been just a toy, and that was to use his drone to walk his dog. And everyone thought drones will now come into their own thanks to this use case. But it was one very limited use case. What is the use case for the cloud? So a lot of companies have invested in the cloud for its own sake and have found themselves overspending and then pulling back from the cloud. And we've had a few examples of that, but I'm going to give you a very dramatic use case. This is the gentleman who in one day used the cloud to change the customer experience in 130 countries. His name is Reed Hastings, the founder of Netflix. This wasn't his business. This was the business that he went up against because he had such a bad customer experience. It was purely bad customer experience that convinced him to come up with an alternative to Blockbuster, which was called Netflix. And this is what happened next. Blockbuster crashed in the space of, it was actually about 13 years from when Netflix was launched, but it was from 2004 when Netflix became profitable and began investing in the customer experience, even as Blockbuster was doubling down on things like charging customers excessive late fees and the like. By 2010, Blockbuster was bankrupt, and Netflix was only at the beginning of a route to becoming a company worth more than $100 billion. And then on the 6th of January, just 7 years ago, Netflix launched across 130 countries in a single day at the press of a button, thanks to the cloud. This is what their rollout looked like. And the second column, which shows their stack, gives you a sense of how central cloud computing was to their whole operation. And the core of that was EC2, which some of you will know was actually built in Cape Town. And some of the people that the Telviva executives that we worked with were actually instrumental in building that cloud. So it's a highly appropriate case study in this context. But what was actually the secret of success? Well, I was very privileged to be able to ask Reed Hastings personally to share his secrets. And there were 4. And the first one, I'm not reading this out to you, but I'll tell you the conclusions from these 4 secrets. Firstly, a happy customer is a good customer. Secondly, you can't be competitive in a vacuum. Thirdly, you can always improve. But the most important message of all was that you should leverage rather than fear new and improving technology. And that applies to artificial intelligence, cloud computing, and the like. All of those should be leveraged to provide a good customer experience, to ensure that your customers are happy, rather than something to be resisted and feared. And the more advanced the technology becomes, the more advanced your opportunity to keep your customer happy. The question is that appropriate to Africa? Well, yes. We have seen the cloud revolution across Africa, and I'm now going to share with you briefly the findings of primary research we conducted on cloud computing uptake across Africa last year. We went to 7 countries to look at their uptake, and we found that the average proportion of companies increasing their investment in cloud services last year was 62%. Kenya led the way, partly because there hadn't been that much investment in cloud previously. So Kenya was playing catch up in a big way. South Africa was behind the average, but this is also in the context of South Africa having invested heavily over the previous 5 years in cloud services. But you won't believe what happened next. Actually, you will believe it. And I'll share with you now what we found when we asked companies whether they plan to increase their spending in cloud this year. And this is what we found. So a big jump in the average, but in South Africa, a massive jump. I'll just show you the comparison again. Last year, 55% increased their spending in cloud. This year, 73% increasing their spending in cloud. Kenya drops to the bottom, and that just reinforces our conclusion that the big jump last year was because of low investment. They played catch up, and having played catch up, they're now playing partly a wait and see, but also leveraging those assets. But in South Africa, where you've had a steady and strong increase in cloud spending for years now, we are seeing another massive jump in cloud services spending. And the reason is fairly simple, as I'll show you in a moment. But firstly, let's look at what apps companies across Africa have in the cloud. Number one is the primary benefit of the cloud and the way it was originally marketed as a backup environment. So no surprise there, 75% of companies using it for backup, but very close behind, and showing that this is becoming the heart of the cloud is customer service and support apps at 70%, twice as much as the next most deployed app in the cloud. So you can see that the cloud and customer service go hand in hand. The question is, what impact has that had on customer service? And that was a critical finding of the research survey. And it showed almost unanimous positive impact. 96.6% of respondents reported a positive impact, and 2/3 reported an extremely positive impact on customer experience. So without the cloud and without harnessing the tools of the cloud, companies will find themselves at a major competitive disadvantage. We looked at the other end of the scale, from the large enterprises using the cloud down to what does a small business see as the most important factor that makes them loved by their customers. And number one was a good experience overall. So at the top end of the enterprise ladder and at the bottom end with a small local business, experience is everything. You can see a good overall experience at 22%, dramatically above something like value for money and the like. But then let's look at the flip side of that same question. What makes a business hated? Also among small businesses. And number one was bad and slow service, almost twice as much as poor value for money. So service is everything in big businesses and small businesses alike. And that customer experience is everything. So we asked about a number of emerging technologies which were not specific to the cloud. And we asked companies, which of these will have the most strategic importance in the next 30 years? And we asked about software bots in particular. Bear in mind, this is before the ChatGPT revolution. And 40% of South African companies said that software bots would have a major impact in the next 3 years. The problem with chatbots is most of our experience with chatbots are case studies in customer experience gone wrong. And I'll give you one very high-profile example. It's a big company, so they've got broad shoulders and they can accept criticism. This was Toby, the Vodacom chatbot, not to be confused with Toby Shapshak, who, if you get him going, doesn't stop talking. But Toby, the Vodacom chatbot, stops talking very quickly when you start asking more complicated questions. And this is an example of a chat on Toby, where it asks what you want assistance with. You make a choice on outages. It asks, do you grant us permission that we can check the accuracy of for your closest network tower? It says yes. And then it says, oh, we don't pick up anything. Would you like to speak to a human agent? So within 3 questions, you are already being referred to a human. And this is the exact same experience that users were having with the biggest medical insurance company in South Africa. Same thing, a chatbot on their mobile app. You ask it a question, and what it delivers to you is answers from its website menu. And in fact, the usefulness of it is as useful as the website menu. And the only way to get more granular information or more personalized information is to talk to a human being. So the customer experience of working with chatbots for large companies at the moment is simply not there. Or should I say, it's appalling. And that just brings us back to that conclusion that it's not about the tech, it's the use case. To have a chatbot for its own sake is damaging to the customer experience. It's the opposite of an intelligent customer experience. You have to look at the extent to which technology improves the customer experience and improves dealing with a human being rather than replacing a human being. I'll quickly show you the context of this in a very broad artificial intelligence environment. This is Gartner's famous hype cycle applied to artificial intelligence. And this was last year, the most recent one I've been able to access. And it shows, if you look at that, the descent down from the peak of inflated expectations down to the trough of illusionment. You'll see halfway down is natural language processing. Now, there's no doubt that generative AI, things like ChatGPT, Google Bard, and Bing AI have speeded up the process. And you'll probably now find it's down in the bottom at the trough of disillusionment, but certainly still not on the slope of enlightenment and not on the plateau of productivity, because there is still so much that's not working. It gets so much wrong. And there's a wonderful term that has been bandied about, and it was used this week when the American Senate had judicial hearings on AI, and it's the term hallucination. The AI tools hallucinate answers when they don't actually have the answer. That's not what you want to give to your customer, and that's certainly not going to serve a great customer experience when the customer is being given hallucinations. We know how much we all have our own hallucinations. We don't want the customer experience to multiply that. So the real answer is that you have to prepare to care for your customer. As technology intensifies, as the advances in technology intensify, customer care and the customer experience will become more and more critical. And the technology will be a means to that, not the end in itself. So the question, should you let a drone walk your dog? Yes, when it makes sense. Thank you very much.
Lovely. Thank you, Arthur. I think you've given us some food for thought. And I think what really resonated with me is the fact to leverage technology rather than fear it. But obviously balancing that out with how it improves customer experience and not just implementing for the sake of implementing it. So thank you for that. Right, so up next, I would like to hand over to Kobus van Westhuizen. Kobus has more than 20 years of experience in customer service and contact center improvement consulting, analytics, and supply chain optimization. Kobus is the founder of Genii Analytics, which provides customer conversational analytics, artificial intelligence, and machine learning solutions to companies. He is also the co-founder and CEO of Digital Tribe BPO, which helps companies shift customer engagement from voice to digital to autonomous. So Kobus, following on Arthur's insights of customer experience, what would you say are the basic building blocks in achieving that, and how to create great customer experience?
Hi, Clara. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me today. That is actually such a loaded question. And after 25 years in trying to find the answer to that, we're still searching. And I think the reason we're still searching is every single time we think we get it right, then everything changes again. So it's never a final state. I just want to position my perspective to today's session here is, you know, I always say that in the contact centers where you provide service or customer service, it's really just a small sort of spoke in the wheel of a total customer experience that consumers go through. You know, you always need to look at the total customer experience around from the time you market to customers. What is their experience with your brand? When they look at an advert, what do they feel? How they feel? What's their experience? And then they go and buy your product. How do they feel in that process? When they pay, you know, something simple as payment, what is that experience like? Then when they wait for the product, or the product is faulty, there's experience with the product. And then there's the after sales service, right through to, you know, if you need to collect money from them, that also either improve or destroy a customer experience. And then eventually, finally, you want to obviously retain them, or you want to sell more to them. Consumers have amazing memories when it comes to poor customer service or poor customer experience. But they forget really quickly when they've had good customer experience. So I think it's a case of I'm bringing customer experience down to literally, I always say we're in the trenches of CX. In contact centers, you can't get more raw than in the space of customer experience, because at that point in time, either customer is already unhappy or he wants a resolution, and that experience that he gets in contact centers or service or an interaction with the brand or the company actually, you know, defines at that point in time what is going to feel sort of moving forward. So you are sort of measuring a satisfaction or experience almost in a vacuum in terms of that specific interaction, but a lot has happened before that, and a lot is going to happen after that defines customer experience. So I'm talking today specifically around what happened in contact centers. I think it's always sort of the holy grail, because technology changes, customer expectations change, and products and services change. So, you know, how are we going to, in the contact center environment or the interaction environment, keep up with that? And it's always a case of, I always say to the guys, we live in a bit of a field of dreams. We have to dream it, but then we have to become really, really real very quickly around how to deploy and how to configure and how to make it work, where we can service the customers the best way. So we have this split personality in at Digital Tribe, for instance, where you have the technology guys who's dreaming. On R&D side, specifically Arthur mentioned ChatGPT, Bob, all of those sort of, so researching and say what is going to happen with that in future. But when the customers actually call in today, that's reality. That's how do you service them today. The reason we started Digital Tribe was during COVID, actually, it's not rocket science. Everybody realized there was going to be a shift towards digital. Not big. We didn't anticipate it's going to be massive swings from voice to digital, but we wanted to deploy something different. We wanted to be able to say to customers, you heavily invested in voice customer service today. How can we help you move and shift to digital in a well-designed and a well-controlled way? And then the next step, what we see is autonomous self-service, chatbots, automation, and so on. And we feel where chatbots and automation got a bad name is people try and jump from voice to automation and think that they're going to reduce humans and reduce cost, and they deploy it without testing it, without designing properly. And as Arthur said, it's, there are just really horrific stories about chatbots and self-service automation that does not drive resolution. The question sort of, that you posed is, I always say to people, the best service, now it's not my line, I read it in a book many years ago, I can't actually remember the author, but that was in America, and he said, the best service is not having to service your customers at all. And that is basically analyze your interactions, whether it's voice, web, mail, chat, whatever, it's analyze it, understand your customers' needs, understanding why they're contacting you, when in their life cycle they contact you, and then go deep, go a couple levels deep to get to the root causes of those. Don't just have a person say this was a billing query and think you've got intel about what happens to your customers. Why was that billing query? How can you? And then design and try and fix things in your organization to eliminate the need for customer service. So if we can get to that stage where we start eliminating the need for customer service, we stop the call. And literally, we started the company, I promise you, over a couple of glasses of red wine, and we said, how can we become an anti-call center company that we can deploy chat, digital, and autonomous in such a way that, thank you, Aki. I see the author of that book is Bill Price. So I think that is important. The other thing is analyze, you've got to analyze really what's happening in your organization and why customers are not happy with what you do. The second thing I would say is provide them a channel of choice. Again, it's not either or, it's not voice or digital or autonomous. For me is give them any of those channels that they want to engage in, because you've got customers that's 18 years old and you've got customers who's 75 years old, and they all have their different sort of preferable channels in the way they want to be contacted. So give them a channel of choice. So when people start omni-channel, talking omni-channel or any channel or multi-channel or what channel they talk about today, it is not either or. Give them all that channels. But when you do think about autonomous, self-service, chatbots, please analyze first what you want to do and achieve, then design before you deploy. Listen to your customers before you design and deploy. And also don't let the techies build the chatbot. Whatever you do, they can code it, but don't let the techies build the chatbot. And walked into so many environments where they say to me, come, Kim, I'll take you to IT. I'll show you the guys who's building the chatbot. Let your consumers and customers, together with your CX people within the organization, the customer service people, let them design the chatbots. Let them design. The biggest contributor to poor customer experience in our world, in contact center world, is resolution, is a lack of resolution. Many years ago, about 10 years ago, I worked with an Indian company, and we actually did a test around customer experience and what drives customer experience. We had a few agents who we basically said, you're going to resolve the customer issue first time, but you're going to be a bit rude. You're not going to be friendly. You're going to be a bit offish, but resolve his issue. And we said to another group, you're going to be friendly as anything, but you're not going to resolve his issue. And afterwards, we looked at analyzing the calls to say who's the most, the happiest, and resolution won every single time. So that is really, resolution is a big thing. And I would say also at chatbots, if you are going to deploy chatbots or automation, have a human breakout or have a human at least to assist for that resolution. As Arthur said earlier, there's certain chatbots that you just get so far. It's really just it's not a chatbot. It's not an intelligent chatbot. There's no intelligence behind it. It's almost a hierarchical structure of questions and answers. And if you ask the wrong question, you never get the right answer. So there's very different things between an intelligent chatbot that's driven by AI and driven by a machine learning environment that can come up with answers and learn and as you go along, and just hierarchical questions to answers. So I think that is really just the gist of it, is that I see the future going into where tech is going to be more prevalent in augmenting the humans to resolve issues and to provide great customer service. Obviously, it's going to have an impact on jobs. There's no question about it, but people are moving on in jobs as well. When mobile came out, we thought the sky was going to fall down and people are going to lose their jobs with mobile devices, and look how that created jobs. So I think the future is really going to be about the technology, even ChatGPT, Bob, those platforms, is how can we leverage that to make the humans, augment the humans to improve customer experience. And I see, sorry, my 10 minutes is up.
Thanks, Kobus. I think you've really given us some practical tips, you know, what to think about, what to consider before just implementing, you know, something in the business, in your customer experience. And I also think focusing on how customer behaviors have shifted, but the primary focus should be on resolution, as you've mentioned in that case study. You know, customers were more happy with their queries being resolved. So I think that should then be the main aim. So thank you for that. I would like to hand over to our last speaker of the day before we head into some panel discussion. He is Telviva's co-founder and CCO, Rob Lith. Rob co-founded Connection Telecom, which is now Telviva, together with Steve Davies in 2004 in an effort to shake up the business telephony market in South Africa. Initially establishing itself as the industry pioneer in IPPBX, the company, Telviva, has since evolved into the market-leading cloud business communications provider. Prior to founding Connection Telecom, Rob held senior roles at companies such as CompuStat Corbitech, Internet Africa, UUNet, Verizon Business, and MTN Business. So on that note, Rob, what would you say are the key things to consider in making the customer experience more intelligent? Just unmute, Rob.
That's a real rookie mistake there. Thank you for the introduction, Clara, and to our two speakers who I think have very broadly covered the topics, and I'm trying to find points that have not been covered. So I think most of what I can talk about just reinforces and picks out some key points. And I think the one from Kobus mentioned is the various channels that come into a business, because we've been talking now predominantly about having a chatbot interaction and how we need to make that smart, being able to introduce it to a warm body so they can bring it to resolution. But I think it's important that that is part of the multiple channels of communication into a business, and having a single golden thread of visibility of those communications. So if you are having email coming in, if you are having chatbots coming in and communicating with teams, if you've got something like a WhatsApp channel, if that WhatsApp is currently being handled by a whole lot of individuals, each with their own personal WhatsApp accounts, you can't build a golden thread of communication and visibility of what a customer's experience is happening. So one of the key takeouts that I've got from Kobus there is that there are the multiple modes of communication, and you need to give the person contacting you their preference and way of communicating. And that probably is different, spanning the different baby boomers up to the Gen Zs. And each of them will have their preference. So very, very important to accommodate all of those. And then the other key point that I got from Arthur is that I was recently listening to a little tutorial on having a look at that customer journey and the experience that they'll go through. And often, as Kobus said, if you leave it to the techie to design, you might get a process that is built for you. But that process is not a customer's journey map. So your process that you map out, which you think will take the customer through all the steps that they need to do, it might be putting them through a meat grinder, which is not a particularly pleasant experience. So the customer journey map comes before you map that process. And that's where you need to have the marketing people, the customer service people, and that involved in the design of whatever experience you're going to put your customers through. The other key thing that I picked out of it is to make appropriate use of the technology in the use of customers' interactions with your company. And while we're looking at a lot of those technologies being forefront of what customers will be using as tools, there are a lot of those tools that in the back end have a look and analyze and can tell you what that customer journey experience is probably like for customers in that. So Kobus, where you're involved with Genii Analytics, particularly does that, and it uses all of the artificial intelligence tools. It uses speech analytics. It uses all of the voice communications. It'll do transcription, so that can be analyzed and have a look at what that customer's experience, get their sentiment from it, and then do some deep dive analysis of whether it's external constraints that are causing the customer's frustrations, or whether it's your internal processes. Like in our particular industry, one of the most frustrating is to get a customer to do their RICA information, as you would when you buy a cell phone or you take the telephony service out. And doing some of those using the tools now, can help you build that customer experience. And to Arthur's point in particular, that there's this fear that there will be job losses. There would be, I think there was even one analyst who said it's going to lead to human extinction. Now, I think that's kind of really shooting it over the top in that. But from my quite recent experience with both ChatGPT and more recently when Google has re-released Bard after tweaking and tuning it, is that more than anything, it puts customer service staff and all your other staff on steroids in being able to do their job. I had a recent interaction with one of our developers, and he wanted to see if Bard could give him an intelligent response to a programming request that he did. So he told it to build him a complete Node.js framework to do a particular task. And about 35 seconds later, it spat out a 2-page Node.js framework for that, which he said would normally take him 2 hours to do in normal production of work. So if anything, our customer service agents who are supporting customers, their jobs will really be enhanced, which again, I think ties back into always have the chatbot being able to hand off or have the involvement of a human warm body in it, because he will or they will have the tools at their disposal to be able to do their job. Because I also read a recent phrase to say that chatbots in these tools can do tasks, humans can do jobs, and the jobs often has the nuances that the human intelligence can do at the moment better than bots. Clara, I don't know if that answers your questions there.
Absolutely, Rob. And I think you've highlighted the importance of keeping that golden thread of the communication in whichever channel of choice that is. And I think there are obviously some pitfalls we need to be aware of, and not just going ahead with a more automated customer interactions without considering those as well. So thank you for your insights. I do have some questions which I'd like to pose to the panel to discuss. So I think the first question, Arthur, which I'd like to ask you is that at the rate that we are seeing advances in artificial intelligence, can we expect tools like ChatGPT to take over the entire customer communication process eventually?
That's a central question in this whole debate. But as Rob pointed out, it's unlikely to replace humans. It's more likely to enhance their role. So the real benefit and the real boon that AI brings to the contact center and to customer communication is the extent to which, to again quote Kobus, it brings in intelligent automation. And intelligent automation enhances your treatment of the customer and then allows the human being to spend more time with the customer when the query or the requirement is more complex than AI can handle, or where it simply requires a human touch. And it's the ability to care for the customer. And that accounts for numerous jobs and industry sectors across all areas where AI can have an impact. So when you look, for example, at the areas where the biggest job growth is expected in the coming decade, and this is based on vast amounts of data analyzed by the United States Bureau of Labor, the jobs that are expected to see the most growth in this coming decade are ones that require that human touch. So, for example, nursing, therapy, consulting, and there we're talking about professional consulting. All of those are expected to see massive growth, whereas jobs that are purely repetitive are going to see a massive decline in the coming decade. And that's the key in this environment as well. The repetitive jobs really need to be eliminated by AI. And that then gives you more time to care, but not just to care, to show you care. And that is when you win the customer.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Kobus and Rob, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Yes,
yeah, Kobus.
Sorry. It is an important point. You know, we're always scared that new technology or new ways of doing it are going to lose jobs. When we started Genii Analytics, the sole purpose of that was to really start identifying in the cold face, in contact centers, in those calls or interactions with customers, What are they saying? What do they want fixed? How do they feel? So you get to the root causes. And initially we help brands actually streamline the customer service environment. And there was an element of, okay, you know, we needed 100 people. We now only need 80 people to do it. Those people did not lose their jobs. What we did is we reassigned those people very effectively in those organizations, because through those deep analytics, we also found out that in the sales environment, agents did not close deals or sales for the following reasons. And they shifted these jobs to do more sales. So where you can be more efficient in one area of your business, you can shift those people to become more efficient in another stage of your business. And any business would like to shift cost to revenue, or cost to sort of profit environments. So it doesn't mean we're going to lose jobs. It means we can reassign people to other environments to make the organization more effective.
Absolutely. Thanks for that.
Clara, I've just picked up one question from the webinar chat, and that says, how would you deploy AI for a business, and what are the building blocks to do that? And I think, to me, there's two aspects to this. I think with all of the hyperscalers who are providing AI tools, so be that the Bing from Microsoft or the Bard from Google and the likes, and Microsoft's Copilot, as they call it, there's going to be a natural infusion of AI tools into users' everyday work tasks. So just for myself in particular, if I'm using, say, Gmail a lot, there's been for quite a while now the kind of auto-complete your paragraph and more intelligence being built into what the conversation is to what it wants to complete for you. But those tools are being expanded, where you'll see, I think, Bard naturally extend into being embedded in the email you're talking and making suggestions or asking you if you want assistance in composing that. Something like Grammarly is already doing those kind of tasks. There's many other marketplace tools and that plug into all of the applications that you use that bring AI to your everyday tools. There is the other side of the business, because a lot of what people have been focusing on now with chatbots and the AI and the dangers of AI is in its public forum type questions and answers, where it might hallucinate and it might do various unwanted interactions. But when you're building a business and you want to use it for your own tools, then it's, building the foundations of having all of the data information which you want to train the tool on, because GPT in itself is the definition that should be obvious there, and that it's a pre-trained transformer. So if you've got the information, then you just need to make sure that you have good, clean, and large amounts of data, usually, that you can privately use to have your chatbot inquire and bring up intelligence answers, because the generative side of that is going to be able to not just have what was previously the RPA, the robotic type automation, or having a look at intents and from that bringing you answers. This generative and being pre-trained will enable much more intelligent answers to it. And I think that's the building blocks that you've got to have a look at it. Two sides: what tools there are out there that you can just plug straight into your everyday applications, and then for your own information that you want to have, even agents who are engaging, be able to have prompts from the tools to say, we see they're asking about this particular mobile phone, suggest that it is, this capacity, this size, has so much memory, and intelligently brings that information to agents to put them on steroids in their answers.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, Rob. think, Arthur, my next question I'd like to pose to you is, how can we make our customer contact more human without having to employ more humans?
It's also an important question and a difficult question, but it comes down to the same answer, really, which is that the more repetitive tasks you can automate, and the more you can automate and bring intelligent AI into those interactions that can be addressed via AI, the more you free up your existing humans. I saw one of the other questions in the Q&A was about, what was the question around admin-intensive processes that we've stopped to consider that some employees aren't necessarily interested in being more strategic, more innovative, and creative. That's from Oliver Nathan. And it's a similar kind of issue, which is that if you do leverage, if you can convince the customer that they can actually enhance their customer experience, they will also enhance their profitability. Again, going back to that cloud computing survey that we did, one of the questions we asked was, what impact did cloud have on profitability? And more than 2/3 of companies said that their profits had grown since deploying cloud, and to a large extent, they attributed that to cloud computing. Now, what customer wouldn't respond positively to the idea of enhancing their bottom line? It's all very well for them to say, we're happy with the way things are, but you may be happy with your bottom line, but if someone provides you with a solution to increase that bottom line significantly, then and also to future-proof your business and protect future profits, you'd be a fool not to listen. And those companies that aren't listening are probably companies that won't be in business in 5 years' time. So you don't want them as your customer, because they're probably going to default on their payments anyway in the longer term. So the bottom line there is that the more you can automate, the more you free up your existing human resources to be more human and to provide more detailed response and care. One of the other comments I saw in the chat room here was that the call centers tend to try and spend as little time as possible in terms of humans dealing with customers. If they had to do less of the dealing with routine queries, they could then be more focused on spending time with the customer, and that will result in a happier customer. The person who made the comment that they're considering changing their banks because the call center doesn't spend enough time with them or is not giving them a personal enough response, that person is then retained as a customer, and that ultimately then enhances the bottom line.
Absolutely.
Arthur and Kobus, I just picked up one other Q&A from Lindy Marks, and I think it's something that hasn't been touched on so far, and is quite an important aspect to this, and that is security. You know, we're in the age now of the cybersecurity threat, which is, you know, front and foremost of people's concerns. And so Lindy's question there is that in an era where society is actively being educated to identify spam and phishing attempts, the increased prevalence of AI and automated response, you know, will that get it right? Will that enhance it? Could it be dangerous in itself not getting it right? I know a lot of work has been done in the tools that we use, where we have you know, companies like Sendmark who are enhancing the SPF and the DKIM of email security, and that, so that when companies receive an email, they're more assured that it's from the actual sender. Because we've seen some fraud cases recently where you know, there's been banking fraud and the likes, and that through phishing and that. I don't know if either of you have got more answers on how security plays a role in all of this.
Kobus?
Shall I jump into it is such a such a prevalent but also important question. I mean, we're all struggling with, you know, I've been at this AI thing now for, when did Genii start? 10 years ago. And we've always had sort of more of a contained environment where you either, you know, develop machine learning environments, and then you write some code. And I see one of the questions is, what's the most favorite AI code, Python, R, or what? But it's becoming very democratized as well. A lot of open source environments that you can create sandboxes now. But with ChatGPT launching, it hasn't changed just one thing. It's changed everything. And everybody is scrambling right now. And I think the worst mistake we can make is that we think that ChatGPT or Bob or that's the gospel. Because fundamentally, we need to understand that the answers and the content and the output you're getting are scraped from 1 trillion different data sources. Whether those data sources are correct, whether it's factually correct or it's incorrect, it's scraped from those data sources. So yes, if you want to write a poem to your girlfriend, absolutely go for it. If you want to create an email with some bullet points and you can read it and change it and so on, absolutely use it for those tasks and so on. But if you want to submit a paper for your PhD and you're going to get some facts out of that is not factually correct. The data sets are also, remember, these are from old learning sets. So I heard the other day, it's sort of the ChatGPT 4 and so on is updating data sets and so on, but these are old data sets as well. So I'm just saying we must be very careful about how do we apply it and what we use it as gospel. And I think, secondly, in the customer service environment, we actually launched a little R&D team that I've put on LinkedIn about, and every week we give people feedback on R&D, on ChatGPT and Bob, and how it's going to affect the CX environment. If we cannot direct a ChatGPT as an interrogation layer to a very specific knowledge management database or a CRM or an ERP or a defined data source to go and find the information there, it's a bit useless in the customer service environment, because if I phone Vodacom or I go to ChatGPT and say, Vodacom, please send me my itemized bill, it's going to tell me, no, I'm a generative AI platform and I can do this, can't do that. So yes, for very generic stuff, you can apply it, but it's going to be very interesting to see how security issues gets managed. Policy, policy around these things, our politicians and governmental structures are always on the back foot of this. Technology, like with AI, we've been doing AI since many, many years ago. It's just now become very prevalent, but policy and governments are on the back foot and they're reactive. Security, on customer security and information security, we have POPI and GDPR and all of these things trying to contain these sort of aspects that we have to comply to on a basis. And then the other last I'll leave you with is, I don't know the answer. I'm just saying the ethical application of AI is a daily thing. When I see those things coming on LinkedIn where they generated a movie with somebody's face on somebody else's body and a voiceover that is saying stuff that person would never even consider, it's very, very dangerous. And those ethical and security issues are going to become very, very, it's here now already. It's topical today that we need to defend on.
Absolutely. Thanks. And I think that's important just to wrap up on that, despite automation and artificial intelligence and how it could improve customer experience, also being aware of the ethical and the security concerns as well in all of that. So we've reached the end of our webinar. I would like to thank you, Arthur. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Kobus, for joining us. Thank you for sharing your valuable insights. I think we can we have a few key takeouts from this, understanding the building blocks, the pitfalls. But at the end of the day, you know, remembering what is the customer experience at the end of it, to resolve customer issues, do it in a personalized manner, but also leverage technology rather than fearing it. So thank you for that. And I'd like to thank our audience as well. Thank you for joining. We appreciate your time. And yes, have a lovely rest of your Thursday.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.